if I was 10 years younger, I'd be on a team 1,000,000%. I wouldn't even hesitate. That would be like number one. You're going to give up a lot. Obviously, you're going to give up your split or whatever. But I think being in the room with people who are obviously way more experienced, have the systems in place, have the business in place, that is huge. And you can't replace that. I'm also at an age now where like I'm not afraid to ask questions to other agents that are in the office. And like there is a little bit of like you gotta leave your ego at the door when you're asking these questions and be like it's vulnerable to ask someone a question that is probably a dumb question to them. But to me, like I don't know the answer, so I'm gonna ask it. So now I'm at the point where I'll ask those questions. And a big resource for me is my dad, which is huge. That I can I can call my dad with any question ever and not feel dumb about it.
What's going on, Tom, Mike? How you doing? We have a fantastic show ahead of us. But just before we get rocking and rolling, just want to say thanks to a couple of our sponsors. One, REVA Global. It's a premier virtual assistant service company, and also Perch Rock. It's an LLC. It's a home buying, selling company. Do real estate nationwide. Tom, Michael, what's going on?
Good morning.
Morning.
Mike, look at that setup, that home office. You look like you're in the Howard Stone studio right now.
Not only that, probably has the best hair of any guest that we've had so far, without a freaking doubt. So anyway, Mike, we're pumped to have you on this episode here. You played professional hockey for 13 years, a lot in Europe. You're from Canada, Ontario. We'll let you obviously do the intro, but thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. You're a sales person up in Ontario area. So just give us a quick rundown of who you are and also some of your future plans. You started a podcast, and give us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I'm a big fan of the show. I've been watching the last episode. It's been pretty awesome what you guys are doing, talking to hockey guys who are now involved in real estate somehow. I love the concept. Yeah, I'm a realtor up in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I operate right downtown. I do kind of, the greater Toronto area, but I do specialize in downtown because that's where I'm located. I played hockey for 13 years, or professionally for 13 years, OHL, and then 10 years I was in the Austrian league over there, and retired at 35, and basically was getting my real estate license during my last year playing, and just got injured, and I was like, all right, well, I'm done. I'm going straight into real estate, finished the license off, and haven't looked back. It's been a couple years since, and yeah, it's been fun.
Nice. And dude, you by far had the best January 1st post on Facebook I've ever seen. I checked out your Facebook page. So it's incredible. So I'll just read a quick caption of it. It says, "This memory came up that exactly 2 years ago, I packed up my entire life in Europe and moved home for good, retired from the only thing I ever knew and identify I had for 30 years of my life, 13 of which I played a game for a living and explore the world. Looking back and reflecting on the 2 years since, lots of ups and downs and everything in between. Fully moved into my townhouse that was rented when I was away. No more flip-flopping for tenants, something all pro players know all too well. Tom and I know very well. New schooling and began an entirely new career. Was definitely scary, exciting, and challenging at the same time. Now it's a business, always looking to improve, help my clients realize their dreams. Met two loves of my life, Laura, Molly, the best doodle, at Molly, the best doodle. A beautiful COVID wedding with my sister and brother-in-law, and now being able to watch my nephew grow up, et cetera, et cetera. So phenomenal post, because that's exactly what we talked about before. And I know you're looking to start, or you are starting a podcast, and you had the same idea that we did. That's before we jumped on this call. We had a funny conversation. We're like, why not do it? Then do it, because there's so many hockey players out there that need this message. And Tom, purpose of this podcast is what? We didn't cover that at the beginning.
Just don't take our name. It took me a while to come up with that. So
best name, actually. I went with the Michael Ouzas podcast. It's very boring, but you guys have the best name going. That's for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. I actually stole it from somebody, but anyway, the purpose of this podcast obviously is everything that Mike just touched on in that one post is, what is next? What is life after hockey? Where is this going? What is going to be my identity moving forward, whether it be personal life, whether it be in business, and to help guys in all walks of life that played at every level from single A all the way to the NHL, the Olympics. We've had every type of guest on this show, guys who have made careers in Europe like yourself, Mike. And, eventually it all comes to an end. You don't think it's going to come to an end while you are still playing because you have that tunnel vision, and that is why we play at such elite levels. But eventually it does, and there comes a time where you have to be vulnerable and ask for help. And what is next? And that is why we created this platform, why we are working on a coaching program, why I take every day with extreme gratitude for, what these guys have helped me achieve in the last 2 years. And I don't take it for granted. And I know guys like yourself are doing very well in the market that you grew up in. You left for a while to chase a dream, and now you're back, and I'm happy for you, and I'm excited that you're excited for the next phase of life. So that's awesome, man. Good for you.
Yeah.
So, hey, Mike, let's walk through obviously your story, right? You played 13 years, and go over a little bit where you played, because you went from Ontario, obviously, you played in the coast, and then where'd you go from there?
Yeah, well, I played in the OHL. I was a bit of a suitcase there. I was traded by the same coach twice, so it was a pretty fun journey in the O. But before that, actually, I minor hockey in Hamilton. It's where I'm from. It's where my parents still live. I played a year in Finland when I was 16 because I couldn't get released from the junior A team in the local area to go play somewhere else, and I was like, all right.
Hold on, let me pause you there.
Yeah.
How did you get traded by the same coach twice? Let's unpack that a little bit. What did that mean?
Yeah, so I got in the OHL, played my first year in Barrie. The coach there traded me to Toronto St. Mike's Majors, played a year there. The coach from Barrie got fired, and the coach from Toronto went up to the American League. And then the coach from Barrie got hired in Toronto and traded me again down the road to Mississauga. And that's kind of where Mississauga is where I was 19. I finally got, an opportunity. And as you guys know, like if you're 19 in the OHL and you haven't really, if you've been traded twice, obviously like nothing was really going that well for me in those couple of years, and slotted as a backup at 19 and managed to get some good games in, take the job over, and kind of never really looked back. I guess it was anyway, I was lucky to have a coach that gave me a shot there and kind of just took the chance and ran with it. And then on to pro. A couple years on the coast, you guys know what that's like. It was a bit of a grind. And then our first year, team folded, got reassigned to Reading, coach got fired. Just one of those first years, and then the next 2 years was in Vegas, and then over to Europe from there.
Nice. And where'd you play in Europe?
I was in Austria, in the Austrian league. It's the top league there, and I started in Croatia, in Zagreb. The team was in that league. So the Austrian league is like 5 countries combined. I think maybe now it's 6 or whatever. But so I was on the team in Zagreb for 2 years. Then I was in Linz, Austria for 6, and became my home for 6 years, which is pretty awesome. And finished the last 2 years just outside of Budapest. The city's called Székesfehérvár. They're also in the same league. Yep. And I got injured my last year there, halfway through the season, concussion. I've had a few along the way, and rushed back, and then hurt again. And I was like, I'm done. Called my parents like right after. I'm like, I was 35, right? I was like, I'm well, what am I doing, basically?
Yeah.
And that was it.
We know. We definitely know. So what made you jump into real estate? Did you get a degree? Did you finish high school? Did you ever go to college? Like, walk us through what you're thinking at that time. Obviously you're getting to the age where, you're playing in Austria. If you didn't get a concussion, you could probably play till you're 40 over there, right? I mean, but what does that feel? What does that look like in your mind?
Yeah, so actually after the OHL, I played 2 years at Canadian University. in the CIS there, and I played for University of New Brunswick, and I actually finished my degree in those 2 years. So I just fast tracked in the summertime and just basically took as many courses as I could to hammer it out. A little bit different back then. Like online courses were tough to find, right? Like it was not like now. We're talking 2007, 8. Finished my degree in kinesiology, which I love training and stuff like that, and then along the way, like my parents, my dad's a realtor in Hamilton. My aunt's a realtor in the Hamilton area. So real estate's been in my family for a long time. And my parents were buying and flipping houses as I was growing up. So I'd come home in the off season. I'd be like painting houses, like working on these homes with my parents and watching them do it. And, they've always been like a buy before renting type of mentality. And, bought my first place at 2014, started Airbnb, did the short-term rental, furnished rentals, all that stuff while I was playing, and then just started accumulating property when I was playing and basically being a landlord the whole time. And
Nice.
and then actually like COVID was kind of a blessing for me because in a weird way, the whole real estate licensing in Ontario went online. It all went to, you could do it online, and I've always wanted to do my license. And but the way it used to be before, you had to be in class or you could only do the exams in person. So it was like, okay, well, it's a lot to do, 2 or 3 exams within the period of 2 to 3 months when you're home and really like have time to study. So I just was like, I'll do it when I'm done. And then sure enough, like it went online. So when I was riding the bus in Austria, I'd be doing the exams. And I knew that once I signed up, once you start the course, you have 2 years to finish everything. So I knew like going into that year that I ended up retiring anyway, it was like, okay, I have this year. If I get an extra year as a bonus, amazing. But then I'm definitely done because I got to finish this license. And I was, 35, 36. I was ready.
So what does it look like right now, your portfolio?
From investments, you mean?
Yeah. Yep.
So I have my, like you mentioned in the post, I have a townhouse downtown. I have a condo downtown as well. And then I have two condos in Ottawa as well. So
nice.
My personal residence, 3 rentals. Actually I had 4 and I sold one off last year. And then so just trying to allocate a little bit differently now that I'm back. And the next step obviously is a detached home in Toronto, but they're not the cheapest. So trying to recalibrate.
Are you looking to build up your portfolio?
I mean, I'm always looking, like it's funny, like when you're a real estate investor, you're always looking. I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys feel the same way. Like you're always looking for opportunities. I'm pretty good right now. I mean, obviously the transition from playing to, now building a business and stuff like that. When you're building a business, like there's a lot of expenses that go into that. So I'm really investing in my business right now versus trying to make jumps into other properties. Plus the market wasn't exactly as an investor, it's there was a good time to strike kind of very start of last year. And then obviously as things kept ramping up, it was like, okay, let's not get into a 10 bid war, 10 offer bidding war. And then, so I just kind of held off and invested more in the business. And now, I mean, I'm always looking, but my next play, I want to offload a couple of these properties and ideally get myself and my fiance, we want to get into a nice house for us for our next steps. And then I'll look back into, I'll invest forever. It's just kind of how I like to do things. But that's where I'm at now.
So let's unpack that. Investing in your business. What does that look like? Because obviously a lot of players that have not, started this venture, right, are looking at real estate. What does investing in your business mean? Because you've been out for 2 years and we all know that you never stop investing in either yourself, right? With getting better, getting coaching. I think you have do you have a goalie training program too? Do you have
I did some goalie camps in Australia when I was playing, and I was always coaching along the way, like at camps and stuff like that. But then, as I got older, I was just training. And in my seasons, I would the last couple of years, like 2018, 19, obviously before everything shut down, I was going to Australia for 2 weeks in the summertime, and I'd run a goalie camp there. It's kind of like a hack to have a nice vacation out there and basically teach some kids, which was cool. But, I was only on the ice for 2-3 days, and then was able to really enjoy a nice couple of weeks in Australia. It was great for a couple of weeks. Yeah.
That's a pretty good hack. But let's get back into investing. So I know I jumped around there. So investing in your business, what does that mean for you, and what does that look like?
Well, the transition from hockey, I mean, once I was fully licensed, so when I retired, I had one course left. So I was pretty much done, about another month or so of a course. And then I interviewed a few brokerages and decided who I wanted to work with. And once I was licensed, it was like, okay, time to go. So my first year, obviously I still do, but just hustled and just tried to, I did a ton of rentals, got people into properties. Those leases actually helped me build my database, helped me learn the condo buildings, helped me learn finding lock boxes in these buildings and navigating and meeting concierges. Like it really helped me a lot. And I know like leases aren't exactly the higher echelon of our business, but it allowed me to really learn, and even little things like figuring out how to do like, DocuSign and speaking with clients and all that stuff. So that built a lot. And then as I kept getting my reps in, started working with more investors and buyers and things like that. And have now, in a couple of years in, but back to your original question, my first year, I was go. I would just jump at everything.
Yep.
Any opportunity, I'm going. Never said no to anything. Like someone wanted to see a condo, I was like, okay, what time? They'd be like 1 hour. Okay, see you in an hour. Like no, like I just go all the time. Which was great, but it is all consuming, as you guys know. Like, so essentially I've my year 2, which I'll be coming into year 3 in February. So like I'm just finishing up year 2. I just made a big transition into like, okay, I need to go from go to what am I investing in my business that's going to make a difference? So for example, how do I build? Okay, I'm going to build an office with a setup for like this. So now I can do YouTube, and I can, when there's investments here in like better computers and better microphone setup and all that stuff. And then what am I paying for? So now it's funny you said you have a virtual assistant company. I wish I knew that 6 months ago, because I hired a virtual assistant, which has been outstanding. Awesome. And it's a cost for me, but it frees up so much of my time.
Yeah.
So, Sunday night, like, okay, here's our list for the week. Let's bang these out every day. Got a listing. Okay, here's our checklist. So I really I just invested in like building an infrastructure, building a back end, building like systematizing everything on paper, checklists, everything. And now when I get a listing, it's like myself, my virtual assistant. Okay, she knows like we're here. She takes over here. I take back over here. Like, so it's all checklist. And so, yeah, it all comes at a cost, but I do think like it's allowed me to springboard into a next step of where I'm at. And obviously this year, I want to keep building on that.
So something important, I know, Tom, you'll have a couple questions, but you said the first 2 years that you started getting into real estate, because this is a challenge for a lot of players. Did you have a girlfriend at that time?
I did not. I met my now fiance, like actually like kind of when I came home, like within a few months we met online. And yeah, it's been the best thing for me. It's been awesome. And now we obviously live together, and we have Molly, who you mentioned as well. She's a St. Bernard poodle. She's massive, but yeah.
So the reason why I'm asking that question is because I know this is a very difficult time. You can relate to this, right? It's very difficult when you make that transition. If you're not transparent with your spouse or your girlfriend, that transition gets very, very challenging at home, because if you're go for 2 years, you need that buy-in. So my recommendation is make sure everyone listen to this, you got to be transparent. Say, hey, it's going to be a tough 2 years, it's going to be a tough road, but I need your buy-in to do this. I saw I don't know if you saw this, Tom, but Adam and I were looking at a post that Grant Cardone did on when I think he got remarried. I could be a little off on the story, but he got remarried and he said he wanted to make sure that, and it could have been his first marriage, I don't know, but he said that he set his goals and he said, listen, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. We're going to set this goal, but this is where I want my path to go and nothing's going to stop it. So I just want to make sure the point of the story is make sure that when you guys make that transition, we all make that transition, that everybody's on board, because if you have someone pulling the other way, it's going to be a very difficult road for you. So that's why I asked you that, Mike.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that was, it is a conversation that we had. And it's not like I retired by the time, I met Laura, I was 36. And so it's not like I was super young, right? Like I'd already been through a lot of stuff at that point. And it's like, okay, well, so I was pretty honest up front now that you mentioned that. And we spoke about that and talk about like having someone who supported me in that as well, which is huge.
Yep.
And even now, like I'm busier in chunks. I mean, it's a clumpy business. Like you could be incredibly busy for 2 weeks, go. And then you could be incredibly like quiet in the evenings for 2 weeks. It just depends on your clients really. And I try to make a point to block in time to make sure, okay, like I'm going to be crazily busy for these 5 days and I will make sure like we have a date night on whatever day. Like I try to make a point to do that because I don't want Laura to feel like I'm not able to give her the time either and still operate the business. Because obviously if we don't have kids, if we have kids, that's another element to add to the work.
That's where Tom is right now. That's exactly where Tom is in his transition. Tom, you can talk about your transition because he went through that same thing. We all went through that same thing. So that's really why I wanted to bring that up. But Tom, why don't you talk a little bit about yours? Because you just had a kid, so it changes when you're married and when you have a kid. So Tom, why don't you chat a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm listening to him talk, and it's like I'm looking in the mirror because I don't know if, how many times have I said COVID was the best thing that ever happened to me? Ripped off the Band-Aid, got me out of hockey, and made me, start the next chapter of life. My wife, I met her at the tail end of my career when we were dating, and it just so happens she comes from, a real estate background. So when I was going through that year, 12, 13 month lull of COVID, what's next? What am I going to do with my life? She helped me like make a resume because I had never been on an interview before. And she's like, you got to learn how to fucking talk to people. Like I just cursed right now and you can't do that in the real world. And it's like, she's like, you have to understand, because she's a nurse. So she's been through HR and interview process and all that nonsense of what real life is like. And if she wasn't in my corner when I, made the jump with, we joke about it all the time. I was getting married, quit my job, had no income, living off savings. And then I said to her, listen, I want to do this, but I probably won't have a check for our family for the first 5 months. You good? And it was like, and she was like, I get it. I know your personality. I know you're going to work your ass off. I know you're going to build this up to, what we want. And she's like, all I'm saying is that, you look at your parents, you look at my parents, both of them are divorced. Both of them had successful businesses. Don't do what they did, make time. And no matter how much you're working, because she knows I'm a psycho and I'll be on my phone until 9 o'clock at night negotiating a deal, or I'll just have to shut it down and she'll have to pull me back in when I start getting, off the rails in terms of, whether I'm talking to Bob or Adam, whatever it is, talking to a seller, something like that. And she has to bring me back and say, listen, like we talked about this, like nothing after 8 o'clock or else what's the point of growing this business if you don't have a fucking family? You know what I mean? So you have to, but time management allowed me to, playing in college, playing pro, and then having the discipline to block out certain, I don't come to the office usually until 8:30, but I'm up at 5 getting, my time be, taken care of and going through my routine so that when, the day starts and I start making calls at 9 o'clock, I want to accomplish as much as I possibly can by 6:37 so that it's family time when I get home. And a lot of people don't know how to have that discipline to where, and that's why they're not successful in this industry, because they need to be told where to be at a certain time. You can go home at this time, be here at this time. You can take lunch for an hour at 12 o'clock. And a lot of individuals, I'm learning, like, need that structure in life. And we talk about this all the time as a matter of why hockey players are so good in this industry, because we have that discipline. We have the ability to, have tunnel vision when you need to be, but at the same time, know how to spread it out to where, your personal life's taken care of, your business is taken care of, you're still learning, but at the same time, you're growing and scaling. And 100%, you need that buy-in from your significant other, or else it'll never work.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. Actually, Laura's a nurse too, so there you go, Tom. We're very similar. But yeah, no, it's huge, and there's even times where, like, we're if we're doing an offer night and it goes late, like, I do feel like, as long, hopefully she feels this way, but as long as, like, those other days where I can shut down at 5 or 6 o'clock and spend the time with her, then those offer nights, when they do come, like, you can be a little more into that for an evening, right? And take that time to, because you guys know how it is. Like, you could be working on an offer till 11 p.m. Like, it's just the way the business is. If they're showing an offer at 8, I got to be available till, it's
whenever.
Whenever. Yeah. So
Right.
yeah,
but again, like, she came from a world of, dad was, my father-in-law was a paramedic before, when he was, started buying his first property. She came from a world of, we're going to go over to the house at 7 o'clock, help dad paint, rip up carpet, until 9 o'clock, bring him lunch, because he's working on something to scale up what's now, over 100 properties. So back in the day, she knows what it was like, because she was in that world. So when she sees me, emulating that, I think it's a little bit easier, but at the same time, she does have to pull me back, and have that happy balance.
Yeah, I think, Tom, on that side of it, the takeaway that for everybody is, no matter what, you got to be transparent up front. You got to block off time. You got to have boundaries too, right? There's got to be some sort of boundaries that we put in, because that's with hockey players, very difficult to put boundaries on us, right?
100%. I could go, like, when I first started, I'm an early riser, always have been. Like, I'd be up at like 5:30 and I'd work till 11 p.m.
Oh yeah.
Just me, like, we hadn't even met yet. Like, I literally would work, and then I would just get up and do it the next day. And I just didn't stop. And I liked that. Like, it's kind of how I would operate like that all the time, even still. But it's definitely been good to make that change. And it's healthy too. It's healthier. Like, otherwise you're going to burn out after 6 months. Like, it's a really tough
I
thing
think it's because, honestly, I think it's because this isn't work to us. Like, we know what work is. Being in the gym, bag skating, like, that's like me being on the phone or my computer, to me, is not work. So it's like, I could put in 20-hour days, no problem. So I think that's the whole mindset with us in this industry. But
work is playing in the AHL and getting bag skated, because you may get called up or not in the playoffs, and you're just getting ripped. That sucks. That is worse than any type of work. I'd rather dig ditches than get bag skated for an hour.
And then unloading a bus at 3 a.m. while eating a fucking Jimmy John's sub in the middle of Middle Western America. That, like, thinking, like, what the hell am I doing with my life right now?
That's been sitting in the dressing room for 40 minutes before the game's over. Just good.
Anyway,
actually, I had some good times in there. So, Mike, I played Italy was the best, because literally when I was playing in Milan, Italy for 1 year, and after every game, I was buddies with the dude who owned the restaurant, and I'm like, every time the game's over, I said, I want 2 cases of beer underneath my stall.
Awesome.
By the time the game's over. So I literally sat in the locker room for, I don't know, probably hour, 2 hours after. We're all boozing in the locker room. It was great. The coach was some dude that had another job somewhere, so he got out of there right away. After his talk, he spoke German anyway. I never knew what the hell he was talking about.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, those are good times. Tom, I know you got a bunch of questions here. I know we're going off a little bit on a tangent.
Okay, it's okay. I want to touch on what you said before. When did you know? You made a comment before that. Obviously the injury, but you said you had some moments where you're like, what am I doing? What am I doing right now? Where was there a particular moment in your career that you knew that I don't want to say put you over the top, but injury, come back, hurt, that could be a few months. Was there a specific moment that sticks out to you of when you knew?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest thing I think for me, and I'm sure for like all players, like once I started doing, the fall down on the other side of the mountain. So Linz in the Austrian league, for example, a team like Linz is, you're playing in front of 5,000 fans every night. They treat you really, really nice. They pay well. There's a lot of great things going on there. And when they didn't, I was there for 6 years. I'm super appreciative of that. That's like having a home, right? So when they didn't re-sign me, that was like, okay, now what? And then I signed with that team in Hungary for, a lot less money. And it was like, okay, then I got there and I was like, oh, it's not a bad, like, don't get me wrong, it's not a terrible place to play. Like it's actually a really good spot. But
you felt it after you didn't get re-signed. You knew. You're like, shit,
you know how it is. Like once you start doing the trickle down of like, okay, less pay, doing the same job, things aren't quite as, let's say, professional. Like once you start going down that rabbit hole, and it's also it's mentally difficult to deal with that as well. And
I felt the same way, Mike. So I'm agreeing 100%.
Yeah.
What you want there.
So that's where, like, in that summer, then it was like, okay, well, we didn't make playoffs, and that was like March 2020. Like, so we didn't make playoffs. Then it was a mad dash out of Europe. The whole league ended up shutting down anyway, so it didn't matter. And then that's when I came home, and obviously COVID. And the next year when I went back, it was like, now we're locked down. Now you're not even allowed to leave the apartment. Like in Hungary, you couldn't even go outside at that point. It was like, which playing in Europe is amazing. It's the best thing ever. Like you said, like you meet the owner of the restaurant. Like you guys,
that's awesome.
Like when you live somewhere for 6 years, like it's your home. Like I knew every single, like I would just sit in a coffee shop, and that was like my thing. I would go sit at cafes and do some work or whatever. And like I would sit down there, the guy would bring me like my coffee. I always have a routine, like 2 espressos, 2 beers, and go home. Like it was like my afternoon thing. Like I just did it always at the same like 2 or 3 spots, and like everybody there. It's just it's the best. And yeah, so once they took that element of it, and now I'm 35, and now I'm like, okay, I'm just slugging away here, and like we're locked down. 7 of us got COVID. We missed the start of the season. Then like 2 weeks later, the 11 other guys got COVID, and then I got injured. Then it was like, okay, you have to practice with like 4 guys and a goalie. And I actually got injured in practice.
Jesus.
In one of those practices, which is like the worst. Like you don't even want to be there at that point. What's that?
Yeah, I got injured.
Yeah. Well, no, I like actually got injured by concussion.
No, I remember I was in France when this happened, and I wanted to blow my brains out because we got shut down. Season got canceled.
Yeah.
They still wanted us running stairs. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
so anyway, yeah, then it was like, okay, so now I got a concussion. I'm in lockdown, can't leave. Like the wheels are just spinning at this point. I'm like, this is like, I'm studying for my core, like for real estate. And like, I kind of knew 2 things I know I'm rambling a little bit, but the 2 things that I think would stick out was the fall off from like where you feel like you're like, for me, that was like the best level I got to, and it was the best team I played for. Like, so that fall down. And then the next thing was like, I lost some. I love training. I love like working out. Like it's my, like, I love it. I love going to the gym. Once I was like working out in my house, and like I was like, what am I like? I am losing so much of this excitement to like train in the off season. And I'm just like, what am I like pushing this for? Like it's not like I'm making life-changing money at this point in my life. Like I'm like, the other thing too would be, once I got to the point where I knew if I retired, like if I retired today, I can go home and I think I can make this kind of money at home or close to it. Maybe not the take home because taxes are a big thing, but I was like right there. And I was like, you know what? Got injured again. I'm like, done. All those factors. There's a lot of factors there, but it's like the fall off, the lack of excitement to train, financially just wasn't, it wasn't bad money. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like, and then injury. I was like, this is perfect storm.
Like, dude, you nailed those three things to a freaking T. I mean, Tom, we've never talked about this on this podcast, which is really important because I felt the fall off, right? I felt the same thing with the training. I was not going to Boston anymore, training with all the boys. And, in a big facility, it was me. I'm working out at the freaking gym, which sucked by myself. Like, I can't stand that. And then obviously start looking at the money like, hey, you know what? I could probably do, make as much or more here. And I don't have to, do all this bullshit, right, to get ready for the season, et cetera, et cetera. So, dude, you nailed it. Tom, keep going with that. I know you got some more stuff.
The other thing I would add to that too is like packing up my stuff. So I rent all my places out fully furnished because I would use these spots in the off season. So I would always like move back home. I never paid rent in the off season. I would just buy a place instead and then live in it, renovated it, furnish it, and then rent it out furnished when I was gone. Packing up, going back for that second year, I was like, I do not want to pack up this property right now. I feel like it just got home. It just it just was like one of those things. I'm like, oh, I'm really doing this again, eh? Like really, like, and you guys know what that feels like. Like you're in that lifestyle of like you have a home, but you don't have a home. You're everywhere, right? So that would be the cherry on top, I guess you could say.
That's right. Go ahead, Tom. Keep rolling with this.
Okay. I want to touch on, we spoke about the hockey stuff. I want to, this is a real estate podcast, so let's talk about real estate. I want to know what you were doing when you were, because Toronto, I don't know much about that market, completely different country, obviously. So what, in terms of real estate laws, okay, what does it go by province? Does it go by city? How does it work? And in terms of, let's call a spade, for 12 years, you were working overseas. What were you doing to get creative to, purchase properties in Canada, taxes, income? Like, how did you, because a lot of guys, this is actually good because guys that are interested in real estate, they might be playing overseas. They don't have a W-2. They don't work in the U.S. So what advice could you give these people? How were you funding these transactions, not working in the States or not working in Canada?
Yeah. So, Toronto has its own laws. Ontario has its laws and Canada has its laws. So all different levels of real estate, of course. When it comes to buying and selling, like your taxes are important, of course. And like you can ask 20 guys, everyone files taxes differently. I don't think there's one end all be all for taxes. And for me, like I started filing in Canada as well. So I would claim my income in Europe and Canada. And that allowed me to like when I would fund the so I would go play, I would save up a down payment and come back and buy something else. And you do have to pay like now there's a foreign buyer ban in Canada. I don't know if you guys knew that, but just started January 1st. So like if you're a non-resident in Canada, like you can't even buy a property for the next 2 years. There are exemptions, but that's a big thing, right? So that didn't exist obviously before then. And if you're like, there's 180 days, you got to be 180 days in one country or not. And if you're not, then you have to pay extra for the down payment and things like that. So there are rules to that as well. But yeah, I would go play the season, save up a down payment, like really be stringent to be like, okay, I need X amount of dollars saved to purchase. And then also too, like some of the properties I bought early and then sold them allowed me to springboard to buy with the down payments as well in the future. And that was it. So my first property, like I bought for $290,000, which like you can't get anything for that anymore. And the next year I moved home, lived in it again. So I bought it, renovated it in the off season. Like, you know, you're living during through a renovation for 3 months, but I was like, whatever, this is my place. I own it. I'm not paying rent anymore. And I put down like the minimum you can put down, like the absolute, like,
in Canada, it's typically a lot more though. What was the minimum down payment?
At that time was 5%.
Shit, that's it.
Yeah, it was great. Now it's different because now it's tiered. So it's like 5% up to 500,000, and then like 10% on the difference between 500 and $1 million. And then anything $1 million plus is 20%. So it's like tiered, but, and that one allowed me to, like, then I sold it a couple years later, took the profit out of that, allowed me to springboard into another one. Along the way, I met, I was living in Ottawa for a couple off seasons. Long story there. But anyway, I was in Ottawa for a couple off seasons. Instead of renting there, I bought places down there, and then sold the one in Toronto, bought another one in Ottawa. That's why I have those in Ottawa. And then a couple years later, bought this townhouse. A buddy of mine was like, hey, you know, kind of thinking of buying a property. And I was like, oh, well, you know, I'd go in on that with you. Like, if you want. We bought one together, did the same with another buddy, and then did it again. Like, just kind of like always buying and selling when I was playing. And I did that. Like, I did a whole like video on it on YouTube of like how I did it and kind of like the process of it. And then I'd rent them out fully furnished when I was gone. So I never paid rent like for 10 years of my career. And I was accumulating properties.
Yeah. So you partner. I mean, one of the ways you got around it was partnering. Obviously, you put money away, you did a good job saving, and you also partnered. So that's a huge takeaway. I mean, Tom, we talk about that stuff all the time, right? Different types of strategies to be able to get in the game if you want to get in the game. There's a lot of our guests, which I know, Mike, you listen to, you know, whether they bought in Nashville, right? Some of them partnered with other individuals, or they raised money and they got the money from other hockey players, right? So I know we're at 40 minutes, Tom. What do we got for last couple questions?
I'm good too, by the way. I got some time if you guys.
I do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Mike, let's just touch on your day to day. You mostly working with retail buyers? Are you a buyer's agent, listing agent? Are you working with investors? You know, what's the day to day like for you?
Yeah, all three, to be honest. When you're in residential real estate here, you could do all of it. You could also do commercial, but I'm not experienced enough. I'm not experienced in it basically at all. So it's not something I've got into yet. Obviously, in the future, I'd like to. Day to day, I mean, the hardest thing transitioning was creating routine. I still find it challenging to like actually like time block and stick to it every day. Like, I'm really trying this year. I'm like, okay, I gotta like time block. So yeah, day to day, I try to be up around 5:30. I try to get into the gym, or get a bike in or something. I want to be active right away. And then I like being at the office at like 7:30. Like, I'm usually one of the first guys there, or the first guy there. I just kind of like getting my bearings straight, getting everything organized, and just, I start going. And I have my routine. So I try to, like, depending on the day, like, obviously, you know, reach out to, like, check the listings that have come out, make sure like everybody who's searching, like, I give them an update of like if anything's come up to the market. Then it's like, I did the Sirhan course. I don't know if you guys know Ryan Sirhan, but he talks about like the finder, the keeper, the doer. So it's kind of like, okay, like, how do I find business? How do I respond to leads? What am I posting? And then, like, how am I touch base with my current clients and whatever, keeping everybody updated. And then I'm working on the business. So then it's like videos, podcasts, whatever I got to build out with my virtual assistant, whatever we're building out, whatever we're prepping. Now I'm at the point where like a lot of stuff is built, which is great. So now it's kind of like I'm more focused now. Yeah, exactly. So now it's like, I need appointments so I can, you know, if someone wants to list a property, it's like, okay, listing appointment, and then I just basically checklist and go through it. And so I'm trying to be a little bit of I like to be systematized. It's how I've always been. Like, goalies, we have our things. So like I treat this business like goaltending in a lot of senses. Like, I know I have to get the reps. I know I have to train the right way. And you know, for goalies, like, it's so monotonous. Like, literally, like, push go from A to B and make a save. Like it's the most basic thing ever, but like the details of it are so key. So I'm trying to do the same thing in my business now.
I love
What
that.
do you do?
Finder, keeper, doer. I like that. Finder, keeper, doer.
What are you doing for lead generation right now, Mike?
YouTube is really something I'm putting a lot of effort in. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there, and the more I listen to, I listen to a ton of podcasts and try to learn. I try to learn from a lot of great agents too, and they're talking about how like YouTube is becoming a big time lead generation for them, where people are reaching out from watching a YouTube video and they'll be like, hey, would love to book a call with you or whatever. And so I'm putting a lot of effort in there. I'm trying to get 2 videos out a week. I'm trying got the podcast going, which is just giving me more content to post on socials. So like I'm pretty active on social media and things like that. I'm really trying to, like, I want people to always see my stuff. Like, I guess like it's kind of like being top of mind, right? We have 70,000 agents in Toronto. So it's like, how do I stand out and how do I, just evolve. And then now like my big thing is making calls. I'm really like, which is hard. It's extremely hard, but I gotta get on the phone more and make these calls because it's like a very important part of the business.
Very nice. Oh, Tom, I think Tom just froze a little bit.
Yeah. All good.
Yeah, it's funny, Mike. It's a little different here in the U.S. Meaning the way you guys market, we can market a little different, right? So where we could buy different types of data. I used to, coaching program I used to run, actually, we had a bunch of events up in Canada, and the way that you guys market is a little different than the way that we market. So cool. YouTube actually is very, very, it's getting very popular. Well, I mean, it is very popular, but how people find us and review us and look at us, that is a great one. I want to break a couple things down. I didn't think Tom Tom got kicked out, but we're at 45 minutes, so we'll wrap it up. But I think it's very important. What is your take on having a coach or a mentor when you first start the business?
I think it's huge. I got into business, obviously retiring. Like I'm 35. I was 35, 36. I'm 37 now. If I was 10 years younger, I'd be on a team 1,000,000%. Yeah. I wouldn't even hesitate. That would be like number one. You're going to give up a lot. Obviously, you're going to give up your split or whatever. But I think being in the room with people who are obviously way more experienced, have the systems in place, have the business in place, that is huge. And you can't replace that. I'm also at an age now where like I'm not afraid to ask questions to other agents that are in the office. And like there is a little bit of like, you got to leave your ego at the door when you're asking these questions and be like, it's vulnerable to ask someone a question that is probably a dumb question to them. But to me, like, I don't know the answer, so I'm going to ask it. So now I'm at the point where I'll ask those questions. And a big resource for me is my dad, which is huge. That I can call my dad with any question ever and not feel dumb about it. So it's like I have a bit of that team guidance without being on a team, right? Like he's a mentor for me and I'm learning from him. But yeah, I would say like if I didn't have that, I would probably have started on a team or at least like dabbled in it a little bit before going on my own. But if I was 10 years younger and didn't have any kind of real estate experience, team all the way, because you just learn. You're going to expedite your learning that by a million. And to your point about coaching, we have our brokerage. The reason I went with them is 2 reasons. Number one, I really felt that their culture was really good. And like, there's a lot of great agents in there with like no egos and big time culture in the office. And number 2 is we have access to amazing coaches in-house, and they bring in coaches to like Tom Ferry's and Richard Robbins. Like they bring them on, Ryan Serhance, they bring them on to our Zoom calls. Like once a month, we have somebody coming to talk to us and give us, some updates. And then I have a coach. She's our director, and like I guess she would be like realtor director basically. And she goes to all the events, and I have a call with her every 2 weeks. And it's like, okay, what's in the pipeline? What are we doing? What's in your connectivity plan? every month we have a connectivity plan set up where it's like, you want to reach out to people 3 different ways.
Yep.
For whatever event or something. And what are you putting on to have a reason to connect with people, basically? So I have that support, which is massive. And I believe in coaching so much, because in hockey, like, you're not going to get better without coaching. It's impossible.
Correct. I mean, what you just said was, I mean, that nailed it, because, it's the same as hockey, right? I mean, if you don't continually get coaching, you don't continually train, you don't continually get outside, ways to, make a save, right? I mean, look at the way the goalies have evolved. Way different than when I played, right? Back in, whenever, right? It was a lot different. Now they're teaching every goalie to hug the post and go down. And it's just it's a way different. So, Tom, any parting words, brother? I know you got back.
No, technical difficulty. We're good. No, I think it's a great show. I think it'll be good for yourself, to help grow your business. Obviously, we'll, once this is out, we'll share it with you. And
awesome.
If there's anything we could do, just reach out. This is why we do this, to meet other players in other markets and other networking opportunities for you. And if we could help you in any way, phone call away. So
that's amazing.
And Mike, real quick, 2 seconds too. Your VA could actually help on your podcast as well, because we have VAs that help us in the background do our, with editing and all that kind of good stuff, show notes. So reach out to Preston too. Preston could definitely help on that side as well. So
awesome.
Mike, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Good luck with your podcast. Definitely get a bunch of hockey players on there, dude. There's more that goes around, and more we learn about how many players actually jump into real estate. It's pretty impressive. So
I'm gonna have to get you guys on to get your stories and do the interview the other way. Thanks for having me, guys. This was awesome. I love what you guys are doing. If anybody, seriously, anybody ever has any questions about whatever, buying properties in the off season, kind of how I set these things up or whatever, like just reach out. I'm happy to have the conversation, even if it's not in Toronto either. That's the other thing.
Young guys playing. If you guys are going home and you want to get into real estate, reach out to Mike. I'm sure he'll meet up with you for a coffee or a beer and help you out.
Yeah,
that's why we do this.
2 espressos and 2 beers. Come on, Tom.
2 espressos, 2 beers. That was it. That's the golden afternoon order. I did that the other day. I went to Montreal for the weekend and just popped in. I'm like, you know what? I'm going straight back to my Euro roots here. And 2 espressos, 2 beers. Yeah.
Cool. All right, Mike. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Tom, thank you again. Thank everybody for watching the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me.